Hi, this is Todd Davis from Seabury Design. In our last video tutorial, we took a look at our new blog module, kind of got that all squared away, and took a look at the resource files and how they're going to play a part in our module. So in this tutorial, what we're going to do is actually start to add some functionality to our new module. We're going to hook it up to the stored procedures and start running them, and take a look at how we use some of the built-in user controls that DotNetNuke provides, and try to get some functionality out of our blog, because right now it really doesn't do anything. I guess the best place to start is, let's go back to Visual Studio. Now, there's two ways we can go. We can either start adding records to SQL Server by hand and go ahead and build the blog ASCX and test that first, or we can work on adding records through our own interface, and I think that's probably the best way to go, is to add our own records and stuff. So let's go in and start adding a few things. I think that what we're going to need, let's start out by building a table with no border equals 0, and we can change our cell padding to 0, and the width can go ahead and equal 100%. I'm just going to flip back and forth because this will format for me everything we just typed in. I typed in T2TR, so I guess I need to add a TD, which is what I meant to do. Alright, what I'd like to do is start adding some things here. What we're going to need for each of our blogs is a title and a text field. So let's add those things. So we're going to need at least 2 of these right there, like that. Now when you go in and edit a module, let's see if I have something to look at. Here, let's click on Add Link for a minute. I think that'll show us what I want to say. Okay, you'll see over here that everything looks fairly standard. We have each of these labels looks the same. Nice Blue has this little question mark. When you go to the question mark, some help pops up where you can click on it and get help there. And we really want to take advantage of it and leverage that. That's a built-in DotNetNuke control. And I'll show you where that is. Now again, the best way to figure out how to do stuff in DotNetNuke is to go back and see what the core did. So let's go back. I'm going to be looking at our frequently asked questions module again, because I think it's a good one. And let's take a look at the Edit Facts ASCX real quick. I'm just going to open it up in a text editor. Here we go. And here's exactly what I'm looking for right up top. You're going to see anything that's prefixed with either DNN or portal is going to be straight from DotNetNuke. And as a matter of fact, I think we're going to leverage probably all 3 of these things here, so I'm going to grab them. This is the label control, which is what we were just talking about. It shows the little label and a question mark and some pop-up help text. The text editor, which is the rich text editor, allows you to enter either plain text or HTML. And the module audit control, depending on how things are set up, will help you to track who last updated your module. I'm just going to grab all 3 of these for right now. Do a Control-C. I'll shoot back into our blog edit and toss them right in there. So now we have access to those user controls. And again, let's go back and just see how to pop them in. Here is a label control, DNN label. And I'm going to grab it like this. Oops. Beautiful. Now there's a lot of options that are not being shown on here right now. You can actually enter the text for this label in the label and help and control some other interesting things, and we're just not going to do a lot of that right now, but it's something if you want to start poking through the code you'll figure out how to do. Let's go back we're going to stick our label right there, and we're going to need a label that's going to be for our title, and this will be for our text box. And they already have some nice formatting set up here too, so let's go ahead and grab that because we already know it looks nice. Just like that. And of course we're going to have to go back and tweak some of these things. And then for our text editor, which will start with DNN. Here we go. DNN text editor. Right there. Let's grab that. And I'm going to pop that in right here. Okay, and then right here we're going to need an ASP text box. Run ad equals server, ID equals text title. Okay, and let's go. This isn't going to be a question field. This is going to be called PL title, and you need to hook it up to a control name. This is our control name right here, and pop that in the control name. And then TE answer field, I don't think so. So text editor, text, TE text. And again, pop that in the control name, and we'll call this something other than label. We'll call it PL text. Okay. Let's go take a look at that, make sure I didn't mess anything up, but it looks pretty good to me. I'll change the width of this to 100% so it fills up. Let's just make sure that that takes. Okay. It does say with 100%, so I think we'll be okay once everything is put together. Now, one interesting thing about adding user controls like this is if I go over and pull the code up, you will see that I have the update, cancel, delete, all those things went in there, and the text box that I added, but the user controls do not show up. So what we're going to have to add those by hand. So let's add protected with events. We added PL title as a DotNetNuke UI, user controls, and that's a label control. We added PL text, which is also label control, and then we added TE text, and that was not a label control, it was a text editor, just like that. Okay, so now we have references to those three user controls that we just added. And let me just pop back in here and take a look at this one more time and make sure it's good. Alright, so now we have some controls to add, update, and cancel right there. What we're going to need to do, is add some text to these right here. Actually, let me go back and make sure. Yep, I want to make sure that this gets in there. Just like that. Okay. Now everything looks correct. A little mistake on my part. Now we have 100% width on there. And this user control, you know what, let's go back and make sure that that's 100% as well. Yep, our width is only 500. So let's make that 100%. Now we should be good to go. Now, nothing is going to show up in these if we don't add some text to them, and that's where we have to go back to our app local resources. In this case, we're not using, this is the blog edit module, not the blog, so we're going to go to blog edit, and we're going to start adding some resources to that. And this is how this is going to work. First, let's start out with PL title. I'm going to copy that. You go PL title, text, and we'll call that title. And then PL title dot help. And again, this is case sensitive, so make sure that you do a capital T in your text, capital H in help. The PL title is just like you put it in the program. And here we'll say, please enter the title of your blog. Great. PL text. So we can have a label here too. PL text again, just text, and that's the text that's going to show up. And of course we'll say text. And we'll add here PL text dot help. Please enter the text of your blog. Save it. I'm going to do a quick build. And let's just double check. I don't think that this should cause us any problems, but I want to make sure that in our events that we're not loading anything. Now you can see that the original framework, and again this is before we did anything with the data access layer, we're starting to make a blog controller, a blog info. It's testing for something called item ID, which for us is going to be blog ID, and we're going to change that. It's going to add to the command delete a little pop-up saying, are you sure you want to delete this? Which, by the way, this is a great example. Command delete attributes add on click. Should be fairly familiar to you if you're an ASP.NET programmer. JavaScript confirm. And then it goes out to a string and it says localization. And there it's talking about app local resources, and get the string marked delete item. So there we already have the text that we need. Delete item. And you'll notice in this one we don't need to add .text or anything like that. Caps lock. Are you certain you want to delete this record? And that's the little text that's going to pop up for us when we go to click delete. And we know that because we're telling the localization to get the string marked with this key. Okay. I think we already went ahead and we remarked out anything that's going to hurt us here. And I did do a build, so let's go back and do a quick refresh. Now, of course, since we just did a rebuild, ASP.NET is going to have to go through the just-in-time compile system and build that. So it's going to take a second for this page to come up. One of the downsides of programming ASP.NET. Alright, there we go. We're reloaded. And let's, at this point, click on Add New Blog. And with any luck, there we go. So now we have title and our text box. We have added, without any real work, an entire rich text editor that can switch between a basic text box and a rich text editor with no problem whatsoever. And if you look here, it says here's what we just typed into our resources. Please enter the title of your blog. So we've made it look pretty professional without a whole lot of work involved on our part, and then we can update and cancel right there. So now we're ready. There's probably just one more thing we want to add. Oh no, I think we're okay. I don't think we're going to need to track for updates. So all we're going to need to do is enter a title and the text of our blog. So let's get out of there. Let's go back. And now it's time to start hooking things up. First, again, just to keep everything in line with everything else, I don't like that we have item ID here. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I know what it is, but when I go to debug this later on, I'm going to say, what the heck is item ID? So we're going to change that real quick and say, change from item ID to blog ID. And I'm just going to do that in the current document and replace all. Good. And now it says blog ID, and that should be in request params and everything else. The other problem we're going to have, well, no, we're all right. We're all right, because we're going to pass that as an integer. So that'll be fine. All right. Okay, here's our command update click. This is where we're going to either add or update the record that we're going to enter. And we're going to change a few things. If anybody could ever tell me what this line right here does, I would love to know it. It appears to initialize the blog info that we declare in some way. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I have a funny way of naming things, or it works for me, but I don't like obj blog. It doesn't make any sense to me, so I'm going to copy this blog info, and this is really an object of type blog info, and now it's very clear to me what this is. But I'm going to, okay, now we can add that. Okay, blog info. Now we spoke before in regards to using the data access layer that we're going to store everything in an info object to be used. Okay, this is where we're going to start to do that. We already have our obj blog info, and that is a blog info object. So you know what? Let's make this. We already have our blog ID, and this is probably not the best place to enter this. That's all right. Module ID. We're going to enter portal ID. Portal ID equals portal ID. Title equals text title dot text. Object blog text equals te text dot text. Date add equals today, and date mod equals today. Now I know we're going to change that in just a sec, because the date mod is not always going to equal, or date add is not always going to equal today. So let's take a look down here real quick. Again, blog controller. I don't like the way this is named. I'm going to rename it for my use. Now it's obvious that that's an object of type blog controller. Okay. Copy that. So what we're doing here is we're going to check to see up here if a blog ID was passed. If a blog ID was passed, great, we're going to grab it and assign it to blog ID. If blog ID was not passed, we're just going to assign this to be nothing. So here's the big question down here. Is this nothing? If it is, then we're adding a record. So opt blog controller, add blog, not hard to guess what that does. And what we're going to pass to obj blog is a blog info. Just like that. And it's happy and it's ready to go. Same here. Update blog. It's looking for a blog info. It's got it. And those are done. Let's just take some of this out. I just had it there as placeholders so I can remember what we're doing pretty clearly. And we did say we wanted to change one thing here, which is if we are updating the blog, then the date info, date add, should not be moved up to today. So I'm going to move that down right here. Otherwise, it should equal here. Let's make sure I have this set up correctly. If we do get a blog ID, then we're going to want to load right here. Give me 1 second while I change this. Blog info, blog info. Now I know what those things are. Okay, and object blog controller. Alright, so up here we said if this is not null blog ID, then create a blog info, and what we're going to do is with the object blog controller is get blog, and it's asking for blog ID and module ID. Now we already have a problem, and I'm not sure if you see it yet, but we're not doing this. Well, this blog ID is okay, because we're going to get blog ID. What we don't need in here is the module ID. We have already determined the module. We're going to need the module ID later on, but we have a definite blog ID that we're passing through. So we'll be okay in that regard. I don't think we need to pass the module ID. Just for purposes of demoing this, we can stick it in there. But we're going to need to go hash that out. We're going to do that in just a minute. So what we're going to do here, it says load data right here, and what I'd like to do is say text title text equals object blog info title te text equals object blog info text. Now everything is loaded here, and we're good to go. That should load up when we pass a parameter in. I think we're okay for now. We'll handle the date on this update blog in just a second, but we should be able to add a blog ID. Let's give it a build and see how it works out for us. Okay. Okay, we were able to load up our new edit screen, and let's say this is a test title, and this is test text. Let's hit update. Hope that nothing blows up on us. Something didn't happen right. Object reference not set to instance of an object at blog edit line 73. Okay. Blog edit, tools, options, source control, text editor, all languages, line numbers. Alright, line 73. It didn't like setting the text. Let me double check that. Line 73 in blog edit, it did not like that text. Okay, if we flip over back into Visual Basic into blog edit ASCX, I can see what I did here. Instead of, I changed our control ID instead of the actual ID, so where it should be TE text here, should be TE text here. We had no value, so I'm going to save that and give it one more quick try. Let's go to blog, add new blog. Test title, test text, and again, stored procedure add blog does not exist. Well, let's go take a look. Add blog does appear to exist, and we have text in there. So this is where we need to start troubleshooting, and I was kind of expecting this one, but let's go take a look at it. Let's follow the path. What we're going to do, let me close out some of the stuff that we're not currently using, just so we can fit more things on the page. Now, let's trace our data access layer to figure out where this problem is coming from. We've already verified in SQL Server that add blog does indeed exist, and it does have text in it that appears to be valid. Okay, so more than likely the problem is going to be somewhere in our data access layer. So the very first thing that we already know we have info in the blog info. So the next thing it's going to do is call the blog controller. And what we'll do is look in public methods and look at add blog. Sure enough, it's there, and we're passing it to blog info, and that in turn seems to be calling the instance of the data provider and passing the portal ID, module ID, title, text. All those things appear to be there. So that's okay. This is going to cause, as a matter of fact, you can right click on add blog here, say go to definition. That brings up our data provider. Here's add blog. And again, it's taking portal ID, module ID, title, and all the things that we just passed through, and so that appears to be kosher. So if you remember our data access layer, add blog will then call down to the SQL provider. So let's take a look at the SQL data provider. Blog methods. Okay, so what we're doing, add blog. Add blog, the function takes a bunch of parameters, portal ID, module ID, everything appears to be there. And then that will call the SQL helper, execute scalar, connection string, and then here's the name of our stored procedure and all the parameters going into it. And if you look closely, you'll see right here is a space. So we're not calling add blog, we're calling space add blog. So if we take that out, I bet you will work better. And as you can see, there's a space in front of every one of these things that doesn't belong there. So I'm going to take them all out in one fell swoop and recompile real quick, and that went through okay. So one more time. Now you can see where learning the data access layer is going to help you out a little bit when you're troubleshooting some of these issues. You need to know the order of things and what's calling what, but we were able to track down the problem pretty quickly. And if you look real quickly here, you can see there is a space between DBO and add blog. It's just kind of difficult to see on an HTML screen. Good, there we go. Okay, let's try add new blog one more time. Test title, test text, and update. Good. No errors. We got back here. We haven't put any code here, so there's nothing yet to show. But let's go take a look at SQL Server. Go into tables, blog, open table, return all rows. And sure enough, there's our portal ID, our module ID, test title, test text. We've added our date add and our date mod. So we're pretty good to go. Let's take a look at the update. Update may or may not work regarding this date add value. I'm a little concerned if that's going to take a null or not and what we're going to get when we add that. I think we're going to have to pull up the date add and throw it in there again. But let's take a look, because I'm just guessing. Now, we don't have anything here yet to pull up to update. What I'm going to show you is we can kind of do this by hand. Remember, we took a look at this before, what's in our line, and if we click add new blog, we'll get a new blog. This is actually our add screen, which is why you see update and cancel. Now, if we go back up and add just a little bit, and I'll say blog ID 1. Let me just double check that. Yes, blog ID 1. So if I type that in, with any luck, we should get this information in our blog. I'm going to hit enter. There you go. Now we have blog ID 1, test title pulled up, test text pulled up, and let's just say updated. By the way, now you can see that delete is also showing up. We haven't actually thrown the delete code in there yet, so it's not going to do anything. We have added the update code. We're just going to see what happens when we click it. Yep, okay, SQL date time overflow. It doesn't like that we put a null in this particular portion. Let me close this out, and we'll get back into our blog edit code. So let's go into our event handlers. And here's our command update. So probably the best way to handle this, one of two ways. We can either grab that date value right here, which is probably not too bad a way to do it. When I say here, I mean when we're loading data originally, to go ahead and update a record. Or we can call with the blog controller right here and get that info real quick, which is also another way of doing it, and probably not so bad, but only if we know what the rest of the information in blog info is going to be. I think this is probably the best place to put it. So let's go private members and say private old date add as date. And when we load stuff, we will say old date add equals blog info date add. And then down here in the update portion, I can say that the info date add equals old date add. Hopefully that should fix it. Let's go ahead and compile that. And then we'll reload it and give it a shot. So again, what I'm going to do is just kind of hack this in there. Let me click on Add New Blog first. And then blog ID 1. Should pull up a record. We'll change this just so we can tell that it's been updated or not, and click on Update. Again, this is just not liking where it's at. Let me just make sure that I'm looking at the right place. It is in the blog controller, blog info, SQL data provider, line 97. Okay. We're going to handle this just a little differently then. What I'm going to do is, instead of adding this old date add right here, I'm actually going to go ahead and get rid of that. I think it was probably a bad way to handle it. What we're going to do is not add it at all. And how do we do that? We can actually leave blog info intact. You can always choose to add fields to blog info, or use them or not use them, it doesn't matter. But let's go take a look at the blog controller. And when we go to update the blog, let's not pass the date add. Okay, we're just going to get rid of that. If we change it here in the controller, then we need to change it in the data provider. There's update. So let's take out, date add. And if we change it here in the data provider, it's going to have to match in our SQL data provider. You can already see it's complaining because they don't match. Okay, there's our data add. We'll take that out. And here's where it calls the stored procedure. We don't need to pass it to the stored procedure. I'm going to do a quick build. And if you're thinking ahead, yep, let's go into SQL Server, go into our stored procedures, and look up update blog, because we're not passing that information anymore. Update blog, date add. Let's not pass date add, and let's not set date add to anything. Syntax is okay. Alright, we should be good to go. Let's try this one more time. Great, that's reloaded. One last time. Let's see if we can update this. blog ID 1. Great. Updated. Now that we're not passing the date at all, we shouldn't be blowing up on the date. And good, it went through. Let's go take a look at our SQL Server. Tables, blog, and sure enough, we've updated our record. Okay, that's done. So the only thing left to do on the blog edit side of things is actually to delete a blog, and that should be fairly easy. Let's go in and take a look at, here's our command cancel, which does a response redirect right back to the page that you were looking at, and our command delete click, which, as you can imagine, is going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to change this to the naming convention that I like, because that's me. Delete blog, and all it wants is the blog ID. Not too complicated, but we should go out and test it real quick, so I'm going to do a quick build. Okay, and let's click on Add New Blog. Okay, let's just try, I'll enter that in like that this time. Good. Test title updated. We all see all the things we want up there, and let's click on delete. Are you sure you wish to delete this item? We got that text from our resource string, and it worked very nicely. We say OK. Got no errors, and if we go back to SQL Server, just do a quick refresh. Boom, it's gone. So we now have a working blog edit page, which is really great. So all we have left to do is go back and add all the viewing parts for the blog, and it's probably going to be a little more complicated than you think. We also need to work on settings. So in this lesson, we've learned how to use our resource strings. We've learned how to troubleshoot, how to go through the data access layer and make sure that everything matches, and then how to tweak it to make it do what we want it to do. So we're going to explore a lot more of those same topics in our next video tutorial, which is going to be getting the front end of this blog set up, and then we'll also discuss the settings.